Hey folks, thanks for stopping back by today. We've got a 1990 Harley Davidson Evolution motor Softail that has not been on the road in quite some time. And the customer brought it up and said, I want this to be road ready. So if you have a bike that's been sitting a while, or if you just bought one and you don't know the condition of it, this will be a good video for you as we wrench on this and get it from not running and back on the road. So welcome back to Butler Customs Motorcycle Shop. All right, so let me get you in here so you can get a gander with your peepers. This awesome old bike. Check that out. Look at the Aztec there on top, or I guess Indian print. That's what they were going for. Has not set in some time, and there is the mileage. I hope you can see that. I haven't even looked at it yet. As far as the condition of the bikes, things seem to be kind of dry on it. It's been sitting here in the shop for maybe a week. Nothing's been leaking on it too terribly bad. And the tires still seem like they're in pretty good condition. The last time it was tagged was in 2021, so 4 years ago, but I believe it's been sitting for a little over a year. And he said he parked it because he thought the starter was going out. Well, we'll test that and actually see if it is a starter, but look at the cobwebs in there. We might have some friends when we start tearing this thing down. So to get this bike road ready, of course, we need to start with the motor and the transmission. Then we can start checking the brakes, all the electronics on it, the tire condition of the tires. Usually when bikes have been setting, it's not the tread that's going to be giving you the issues. This still has good tread. It's the dry rot, the cracking on the side. So we need to check that out and make sure that's good for them. Inspect the belt as well. Dropping the primary oil, inspecting primary chain, probably tightening that. New oil filter, new plugs. We'll do all that goodness to this bike. I know he said he had some issues with this light flopping around, and his switch for the light stopped working. So we'll fix that. And he wants these handlebars raised up. Look how low those are. So we're going to get those kind of raised up, and they need to be kind of tightened up anyway. So I think this is going to be a really good project for us. And let's just go ahead and jump in and get started. Now, before we do any type of cranking on the bike, we're going to pull the plugs and inspect those plugs. Now, the plugs themselves will show you the condition of any motor if you know how to read them. That was surprisingly loose, and that one as well. That's the rear plug, and I do see some issue right here. I don't know if you can see that or not with the shadow, but that looks to be, feels to be sticky with oil and really gummy. If oil's coming up out of here, then we definitely have an issue in this cylinder. So here's the front plug here. It's got really good color. It is a little dry carbon on it, so it looks like it might have been running a little rich on the front, but not too bad. Not too concerned about the front. Now the rear is running extremely rich. Now the bore scope that I have is a Vivor, not sure. I saw somebody on YouTube using this and looked it up on Amazon, and it was surprisingly affordable compared to the other ones, so I kind of like that. I'll put a link in the description down there so you can pick it up on my Amazon link as well. So put the cable in, you just pull this back, slide that in, that kind of locks it in. And then we'll fire it up. And something had happened to my screen. I've never dropped this, so I'm not sure. Now I do leave it out here, but you can still see. Here's the front cylinder here. Well, I don't know if you can see that or not. There's the front cylinder. Doesn't look too carbonated. Too much carbon on it. The cylinder walls look okay. Let me try to switch angles if I can remember how to do it. There. That's upside down. I think we're looking at a valve there. No, that's another valve. That's the top. A little bit of debris on the cylinder wall, but I can actually see some cross hatching there up toward the top. So that looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and drop it down here in the rear. I suspect this to be a little nastier, but hey, look, it's not. It's a lot cleaner. A lot better looking. Very good. Let's see if we can see the valves up at the top. Yeah, there's one. Looks pretty good. There's the other. Looks pretty good as well. So it looks like that's in pretty good condition. Evidently this screen has gone bad. It used to work great. So I might have, dropped it or set it down or something. I don't remember that, but you can actually take pictures of each thing, go back and look. Y'all seen me use this before on like tank cleans and stuff like that. So inside looks good. Now I do want to, I've got the rear tire up. I'm going to put it in the highest gear, and then we're just going to kind of rotate and see how the motor feels before we crank. Third, fourth, and fifth. Now let's rotate. Sounds good. It's turning good. I did a whole 360 on it. Didn't feel any kind of catch or anything on the rings. So I think it's safe to actually crank this. And I want to leave the plugs out right now because I'm just concerned about his issue of the starter saying that it was not cranking. All right, we'll go ahead and take his seat off. It's not bolted down. He actually just had it setting off of the bike. And there is no battery in this. So I love this. This Gooloo, Gooloo. I'll have this down in the link. I carry this in my bike. I keep it here in my shop. If we go on trips in a vehicle, I carry this with me. This thing is awesome. It's a little jump pack, super small, and it has other stuff besides just jumping off cars. It's got 2 USB chargers, a USB-C charger, a little light on it, an outlet on it as well. But the reason I like this is that this you can replace as a battery. So if you're going to look at a bike that they say, oh, it just needs a new battery and it'll run. Let's see if that's true. So you can take this and actually hook it to the negative and the positive, and you can actually start or crank the bike with just this pack. You don't need to have anything else. You don't need to even have a battery in there. So what I'm going to do is just hook it up. It's got a little button here on the side that'll bypass charging a battery or jumping a battery, and you can just run direct current right to your wires. So it's a nice feature. I'll go ahead and turn ignition on. I'll make sure my start kill switch is on. Now all I want to do is hear a crank. The customer said he thought the starter was going out, and I said, well, what kind of noise was it making? He said it was just clicking. Well, that's the first sign of a low battery, not necessarily a bad starter. If you heard any kind of grinding or the starter staying out and not plunging back in and whining and running while the motor's running, then that's a starter issue. Most of the times, 90% of the time, it's just a low battery or a dead battery, or a battery with a bad cell that's just not keeping charge. So when you turn, it'll charge the battery while you're running. The stator and the rectifier will send power back. But the minute you turn your bike off and let it set overnight, that bad cell will drop the voltage in your battery and you'll have the clicking issue again. So got everything ready to go. Let me push the button. There we go. Let's see what we have. Okay. There we go. So not a starter issue. And I even had that in gear. Let me put it back in neutral. We'll try it again. All right. Now I've got it in neutral. It should crank a little quicker. And I also was feeling the transmission, the shifting. Shifts great. Shifts great. These 5 speeds are hard to beat. All right. Try this again. Hit my juice again. There we go. Not a starter issue. Was just a low battery. That's great news. Saves us from having to do a lot of work on this bike and speeding up the progress on it. So I'll put a link to this in my description down below here in this video, and go over and pick it up. Super handy to have. Lasts a long time too. I'm surprised at how long it's lasted. I've had this probably 3 years. It even comes in this little nice kind of pouch that you can carry, and I just keep it in my saddlebag. Pretty nice. Now let me check to make sure we have some oil in here, and it is bone dry. Let me look down in here. Okay, so I'm glad we didn't crank much on this. There's absolutely no oil in the tank. I can actually see the bottom of the tank and it's dry. So this baby does leak oil evidently, or maybe they just run it out of oil. I don't know. The oil light should have come on. And how many miles? Whew, 51,517 miles. You know what that means. If it hasn't been rebuilt, it's probably time for one. Things don't look too wet down at the bases though. Might run good. I know we're going to be pulling the tanks. This has the awesome split tanks that I love. So you'll be seeing me do that. And I know we're going to be rebuilding this carburetor. Looks like it's got a stock carb on it. And we'll be checking the air filter and all that. So before I crank any more on it, what I want to do, I'm pretty sure this is going to run. Harleys are hard to beat unless there's a bad ticking or something in it. But I want to go ahead and change the oil filter. Put new, we don't have to change the oil. There's nothing in the tank to drop. Put oil in here. We'll pull the tanks. We'll look at the condition inside them. We'll clean the petcock filter out. Because I suspect there's going to be gas in here, and it's going to be needing to be washed out, cleaned out. And the carburetor are probably clogged up as well. I don't have good throttle response at all. It's really sticky. I feel like I'm really pulling the cable when I twist the throttle, and it doesn't snap back. So that tells me the diaphragm's sticking open. And so we'll be doing a carb rebuild on this as well. And then I heard some squeaking in the back. We'll check the brakes. It might just be where it's not been rolled in a while. And check the condition of our tires. And then look at our electrical stuff. It looks like we got enough electrics to crank. Now, I did see all this. You say, what is that big mess? It's very old LED lights, like first generation LED lights. I don't suspect it's working. I see wires cut here and there on it. I'm just going to take that off. This was his dad's bike. His dad probably put it on there. But he probably never, the son probably never used the LED lights, and they're half broken off and stuff. He does have a battery tender on here. I want to keep But I am going to take these lights and all the wiring for that off. Everything else, as far as what I'm seeing and looking at, looks really good. It looks stock. It doesn't look like anybody's been in here monkeying with things. So usually you wouldn't, if it had oil in it, you wouldn't be changing the oil at this point. But I think it's wise to go ahead and do that. I'm pretty confident this bike is going to run for us and be a good runner. It'll be a good bike. It's pretty and, very special to the son to be riding his dad's bike. So really excited for that and for him to ride around with us on a Saturday. It's going to be a lot of fun. And the pipes have been upgraded, the Vance and Hines shotgun style pipes. So who knows, the motor might have had some work and the carburetor might have had some work. So, all right, we got our filter right here. We'll put our little, now we'll just give this a twist off. Been on there a good minute. Yeah. Spin this off. And we do have some oil dripping out, which means we do have a little bit of oil pressure while we were cranking, so that's good. Get our new filter out here. I'm a fan of the wicks. I've watched several videos on them taking these wicks apart and comparing them to the K&Ns and don't even talk about a Fram. But all the other filters, these seem to be the best quality, best made, and I really like these. Let me clean off that surface area. Make sure we get a good seal there. And then we'll spin this on. A good twist with our hand. And then that filter's not, that filter wrench isn't going to fit. We'll try our other one. It's even bigger. And we'll just go to our faithful, never lets me down, this strap right here with a socket on it is my go-to right here. This thing never lets me down. I've never had a filter I couldn't get off with this. One thing is you got to be careful because this will crank them down so much it'll actually bend the filter in. There we go. Now we'll take that off. Clean that up. And our filter is now done. We will open up the drain on the tank, just to make sure there's nothing in the line of the drain. And then we'll add our quartz to it. All right, on these Softail tanks, the drain plug will be down right underneath your exhaust. This one has a little clamp on it to hold the stopper in. Pull that off. And all we got to do is pull the stopper out. There we go. And then we'll let it drain. It is actually draining some. So that's good we did that. And then I've got the cap off the top there as well, so that can drain on down. So we'll let that drain. We'll put the cap back in, but while that's draining, we can go to the other side and start draining our primary fluid. All right, on our primary fluid side, got a T30 here. You want to be careful if these have been in here a while, not to strip them. You'll have a time trying to get anything up under there to pop that plug. And I like using this big pan here because I can actually drain the oil over there and move it and catch the oil here as well. Now you want to look at your plug. As you can see, there is quite a bit of material on there, quite a bit of chunks on there. But hey, it's 51,000 miles. Looks like they're small flakes. There's no big chunks in there. Nothing massive coming out. So it's kind of expected for a bike with that many miles on it. Who knows the last time the primary fluid's been changed. Most guys, they ride bikes, old bikes, till they just don't run anymore, and then they'll fix them. So sometimes there's not a lot of maintenance done on those. All right, so we'll let that drain. I want to go ahead and take this cover off here. It'll drain a little bit faster, and we can inspect our chain as well. I suspect there's some flop in it, and we'll tighten that up. All right, these here on this inspection cover is 5/32. They're pretty loose, actually. So when we go back in here, we'll put some blue Loctite on here. I don't see really anything leaking from the bottom of the primary cover where it mates, so that's good. So if we don't have to pull this primary cover off, that would be good. And of course, we won't know really how it shifts and stuff until we take it down the road. Oh yeah. So I'm running my finger up in here, feeling the top of the chain, plenty of slop. So what I'm going to do is break this nut here loose, then pull up with the socket on here and pull up. That'll tighten that chain up. It's really loose, so we want to get a good tight fit on that. I believe that's a 9/16. My memory is right. 9/16. We'll break it loose. And then I'm just going to pull up. Keep tension on it, pulling up while I tighten it back. Now I'm just going to get it where it'll hold. I'm going to check. That did nothing. All right, let me loosen it a little bit more. There, now it dropped. Now I'll tighten it up. Oh yeah, good. Then I'll just go ahead and put some oomph on it. It is a lock nut, so that is good. All right, now I'll leave this off till all the oil drains out, because that's going to be how we're going to fill it. And then we don't have to take this cover off. We don't have to take the gasket off. We can shine a light in here and inspect our sprockets. You can even get a light in here and look back at your clutch hub sprockets as well. But the cranking was sounding good. There was no grinding. And now we won't know really how the primary sounds until we get it running. But if we need to go back in here, we can go ahead, drop the oil, that fresh oil I'm going to put in here. We're going to keep it and put it back in if we have to take this cover off and inspect the clutches or anything like that. Alrighty, ready to go back in with our plug. Our oil is now just kind of dripping out. I'm going to take you a little bit of Teflon tape and thread it to when you're tightening. It will keep tightening on your Teflon. If you don't wrap your Teflon right, it'll come unwrapped. Also, make sure you don't cover up your magnet there. And clean this off one more time. We'll shove that up in there. And you want that plug to be pretty tight, but you don't want to go too far in. So just shy of flush is usually what it takes, and that must not be a T30. It must be a Allen, but it worked. Now we can go ahead and drop our oil up here in our primary. We'll go ahead and put the cover on, because when we're cranking, we don't want that shooting out or running down here. All right, we'll go ahead and fill our primary up. Primary takes just shy of a quart. So what I do, I like to keep my old bottles of gear oil, because they've got the little spout on them. And then I'll just fill up how much I need in this, and it makes it super easy just to take this and go ahead and squirt it in. I'm not worrying about spilling anything. And my kid's favorite part of using this jug is coming up here soon. They always like it. That's their favorite part. Always gets a good laugh out here in the shop. All right, now we can go ahead and clean our surface off here. Inspect our gasket. It looks good and sealed up and no nicks or signs it's been leaking. So I'll just go ahead and use that again. We will blue Loctite these screws, bolts. We'll put this up here and get that middle one started. Go ahead and get our other ones ran in. And we'll tighten these down good and snug. Just a little at a time. I mean, I've never seen these things warped. They're so thick. I think it'd be hard to warp these. We'll just snug them up and then we'll go back around and torque them. Our primary side is done. A little windy out here today and cold in the shop. That's why you hear those bay doors slamming and banging. Now let's go to the other side, get our oil plug back in, and then we can drop some oil in the tank. All right, we'll go ahead and throw our plug back in. Make sure it's pushed up all the way, and then we'll put our hose clamp back on. Tighten that up. We'll run this back up in and put it on that little holder that's up kind of under the swing arm. And that just kind of keeps it from flopping around underneath the bike. Down in there, right down in there, there's a little holder down there that you can kind of slide that in and push that little tab down. That'll hold that hose up. Now let's go ahead and drop a couple quarts in here. I'm just going to do 2 quarts right now. Don't want to overfill it, and because I don't know how much is in the case, and or not, probably not much, but 2 quarts is safe. We'll go ahead and do that. Drop the 2 quarts in here. That'll give us enough to kind of run if it gets to running. I'll just fill up this old gear oil jug again. Fits down in there nicely, and it doesn't go far enough where it'll pop off and fall down in there. So you don't want to squeeze too hard. You will pop the cap off of this jug. But this is less messy. You don't have to use a funnel. Anything that I can use again and not throw away makes my job easier, I think, is a win. We'll go ahead and throw our second cord in. Throw our plug in. And that gets us right at the mark. And once we cycle the oil and stuff, we might have to add a little bit more, but you definitely never want to overfill a Harley. Try to hit the middle mark. If you got 2 markings on your dipstick, that's what I like to do. Now, there is an urge, you're already feeling it, to throw some gas in this thing and see if it's going to fire up. But nope, we can't do that. Usually you might could, but that throttle is so gummy. You're going to fill these tanks full of gas. You're going to not get the carburetor working right. It's not going to crank, or it's going to run like crap. So save yourself a lot of time, because then you got to drain the gas out of these tanks again. Let's just go ahead and work on this carburetor. Get it off, get it cleaned, get it sliding good, get the throttle response snapping. Then we know we got a good carburetor, and then we can pull our tanks off and start working on them, cleaning them out, flushing them out. See the condition inside? Not even looked inside there. You know, a lot of people don't run ethanol free or even premium in their bikes. And so if this low grade gas in here, and it's been in here 2 or 3 years, it's a no-go. So we're going to have to do that anyway. So let's go ahead and tackle this carburetor. And then we'll also, I didn't do this, but we'll also check for spark before we put our plugs back in. All right, let's pull this air breather cover off. Now I'll flip this over as kind of like a catch pan. I'll put everything in here that I'm going to pull off. The air breather is full of just bugs and debris. Now these air breathers, they're metal, so we can take carb cleaner, spray all through here, and then we can actually blow it back out, clean it up, and reuse it. Now these foam pads. They're in pretty good shape here. Starting to deteriorate a little there, but this is good. We can reuse this again. And we'll get our bolts here. You got these little covers that go on here as kind of just caps. All right, I want to start here with these little ones. They are 5/32. There will be a little gasket back behind here. That one's not want to come on out of the hole, so I believe it's out of the carburetor, but let's go ahead and pull these breather bolts out. Okay, so now we've got all this off. You can try to get up in here and get all this off and stuff, but we're going to pull these tanks anyway. So let's just go ahead and pull these tanks. That gives us room to get up in here and take most of the stuff off the carburetor. It's a lot easier. All right, we'll start with this nut up here that holds the console on. Take this little cover off here. There we go. Run our screw back in. This style, the odometer, the speedometer, is actually bolted to the neck, to the frame. And you've got this odometer reading right here that's going to get in the way of getting this off. So you've got to take this right here off. Now these are the older style speedometers that have the knob out here. That's not the electronic push one. This is a turn style one. So this has a set screw in here, and you will need a small screw set, Phillips head set. And now let me actually get something to hold as I carefully unscrew, because these are known to strip out really easy. You will usually have to drill them out and replace them. And this one is stripped. It is not coming out. They get all crusted up in there, and or they hardly ever get removed. And this one is stripping it out. So we will have to drill in there, drill that head out to get this off, and then replace that screw. All right, so we're going to get us a bit that'll fit in there good. I'm going to go ahead and raise these bars up because my drill's hitting this here. There we go. All right, finally come off. And then there should be enough of the screw in there that we can grab some pliers to and get off. Now we can go ahead and raise this cover off, and it's just a cover. This has the old school style switch, much like the pan heads and shovel heads. We've got what's left of little bitty screw out here. Now I think we can get us some pliers on and twist out. Now we can leave this here for the moment, and we can go ahead and take our tanks off. This cap here should be a reverse thread. Yeah, it doesn't sound like there's any gas in there at all. Sounds very dry. Yeah, no gas at all. Dry as a bone, which is a good thing. We'll get the one off the petcock, and then this side of the tank's ready to come off. We do have a crossover tube right here that we'll have to pry off as well. We will definitely be replacing this gas line. It is coming apart, just trying to get the hose off. So since we're going to replace it anyway, we'll just do a little delete right here. That's definitely stiff and hard. We'll be replacing probably both caps or both lines, and then we'll get this crossover tube here off. Looks like we'll be probably replacing that as well. Now we'll go ahead and take this center one out first, and we'll take the bottom one out. Now the bolt and washer for the front, top, and bottom of the tank is a whole lot shorter than the bolt and washer for the back. of both sides of the tank. So don't get them mixed up. Hold the tank because this is the last bolt. And now these are ready to come off. Now if they've been on here a while, they'll be stuck. So I like to kind of free that back up and give it a little twist back and forth because you've got these rubber grommets that might hold you up. Now we're getting rid of these so we can go ahead and peel those off. Don't even know if they work anymore. Hear all that junk in there. So we'll definitely flush this out. And then we'll go ahead and, when we're ready to flush this out, take this petcock off and give it a good gas flush, get most of that stuff out. We need to check our filter and see how that looks, replace that. And now we can work on this other side. Again, I'll start with the top. Go ahead and pull my hose through so it's out of the way. I'll be replacing that anyway. And our top one here. Again, we'll slide this off the back. And then those should come up there. We got one of these LED lights, and this one sounds much the same. All right, now we got room to work on the top of our carburetor. We can also, whoops, it's just the washers that sit under here. We'll also go ahead and start taking all this mess off now. Okay, I went ahead and pulled the choke cable through. And usually we would go ahead and take this clamp off to remove this fuel hose and leave it. However, we're replacing this fuel line. And I see here, once I get this off, it just pulls off, that there is a fuel filter that is here in this fuel line as well. So maybe the tank doesn't have a filter on top of the petcock, so we'll have to look at that and check that out. You do have a little VOES vent line right here that you'll just pry off. It's just a air hose vent line, so there's no connector on that. Then we should be able to pull this hose through that grommet. And there's our fuel filter there. We might just take it apart just for funsies and see what's inside there, but I really didn't want to try to get this off right now. I'm probably going to have to cut it off because I don't want to mess up in here. You can tell by our carburetor, it's really gummy. It's been leaking, so it's time for a nice new rebuild kit. Now over here, we don't have to mess with our throttles over here because we can just take this plate off and keep our throttle cables in this, and then we know where they go. So if everything works well, these will come off. Look like they've been on there a good minute. Take that top one off. It'll be longer than the rest because of this plate added the height to it, and then we'll just take this side one here off. This actually holds that bracket onto the carburetor. Now with those off, we can just slide this bracket out, and then we can move our cables out of the way. We can leave them in this and just let this hang. Now we've got our carburetor off, and we can start rebuilding it over on the table. All right, so I did go ahead and get this off because it was just flopping and in the way, and it's just full of what feels like sand. Just sand. So I'm not sure what's in here, but it's full of just junk. So we'll be looking at that petcock filter for sure. Now we'll go ahead and take our choke assembly out because we want to kind of clean everything up. Look at all this backfire in this carburetor. So this bike was not running well. As you can see, several leaks around everything, and just a lot of backfire. So I'm wondering about our spark now. I'm wondering about our coil and our timing as well. But we'll get into that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Let me get something to grab a hold here. Usually needle noses are about the only thing you can get in there to start that. That seems to be a little bit easier. Easier way to do it there. So yeah, that was stuck. And look how gummy that is. A lot of people, they forget about this. So they actually forget to clean this. So you pull this little spring up. That'll come out. You can also squirt some lubricant down in there and get that cable going good. We'll also clean this seat up, that needle, and clean out in here real well too. So don't forget that. I'm going to just go ahead and take this hose off right here just to get it out of the way. There we go. Lay that out of the way. I like to start at the diaphragm side. Somebody has been in here before. You can tell by the heads of the screws. And we'll hold the top because it is spring loaded. And we'll take that top off. We'll take the spring out. And here is the diaphragm. And the diaphragm looks actually very good. It feels good. Looks like it's been replaced. You'll have well, that shouldn't have come out like that. You'll have this little holder that's supposed to hold everything in, and then you've got two washers. One, and there's one that fell right down in there. Two. So this has been spaced out. We'll clean that needle up. And we'll clean out all of this backfiring here, right here, so that our diaphragm will slide nice and well. It's just sticky and gummy. So we'll get that cleaned up. Now we can start on our bottom. Looks like somebody has replaced this screw. Somebody's been in here. This one looks almost stripped out. Curious to see what our float bow bottom looks like and what the jets look like, and I'm not sure how much sand that filter actually filtered out and caught. It would explain why it probably wasn't running good if it was running. All right, now we can slide this up and out. You have your accelerator pump arm that's there, and not too bad, but there's all that sand that was in our fuel line. Wonder if this comes from Florida or too many bike weeks down at the beach. I don't know, but that is a lot of sand. Now we'll go ahead and take our accelerator pump apart. These three right here. Now before that, you can test this by taking this arm out here. Let me get this boot up and off here. I don't think it's doing much good like that anyway. We can take the arm actually out of here. Then we can take our pump down in there. And that's what pumps the gas out of this hole right here. So I would say our accelerator pump needs a little more accelerating. And it just comes off there. And that's where probably most of our leaks were coming from. Right there. And here's the little cap. Actual diaphragm. It still looks pretty good. A little spring that sits down in there like that. And in our cap here, and there's an O-ring here. And sometimes that will get leaking as well, because when you set them on there, they don't set in there. They might move on you a little bit and you don't realize it. And then you'll get gas leak out of that. Okay, so we'll set that to the side. We'll go ahead and start working now on our float. Take that out. Oh. Man, they had this carburetor really spaced out. 3 washers. We'll take our float out with our needle at the bottom. The kit will come with a new needle. See, this one has, well, you probably can't see it from the video, but it has a little ridge around it. Then you can also test the little spring in here. Now you have your jets. So you've got your main jet here, which is a big hole jet. You won't have to really worry about that coming off. And we'll also there we go. And this will have some little holes there that you'll want to clean out and inspect. Now the hole here will be huge. If that gets clogged up, you got bigger problems. But we'll get this jet out here. This is the one that easily gets clogged on us. Oh, a bunch of junk came out of that hole. Now this will have little holes on the sides and then a small hole here. And it was not clogged. Believe it or not. It was not clogged. Now everything else can be blown out. All right, now where your needle sets, now that you have this out, you can flip it upside down and it will come out as well. So there's only one way that goes in there. It does not go in through here. If you do, it'll set up real high and it'll just ride. There's a beveled end, and that's the side your needle goes in. And then there's a flat end. That's the side that the jet goes to. So when you put that in there and it gets up in there and you screw this back, that puts this at the right height for your needle seat. So unscrew that, poke that out, drop it back out. A lot of trash is coming out from up in there. So we'll blow all this out, carb clean it, blow it all out again, clean this up. It'll look a whole lot better the next time you see it. Now we do have all of this junk right here. And it looks like they've put some kind of sealant in there. All right, so they have puttied this up. And the only reason you would do that is if this was leaking out of this. I don't understand. I mean, that's your mixture right there. The screw is still down in there. We'll pull this out. I don't know why they would do that. And it's still got the spring in there. So it seems like they might have been leaking on them. And they didn't, instead of just fixing it, they just ran a bunch of putty goop up in there, sealant. So I've got the carburetor and all of its parts in the ultrasonic cleaner soaking and vibrating. I went ahead and took this filter apart, the fuel filter, and it's like a stone filter, and it was full of sand. Now it's less gritty sand, but still sand. Now I pulled the petcock off, and the screen here, the fuel screen, looks really good. But even this stone filter did not keep sand coming out. The tank is full of sand. I'll take you over and show you what come out of the tank. Some people put these in. I've even seen them use the glass ones. Do not use glass fuel filters on cars or bikes, because this is sitting right between the jugs. It's going to get hot. That glass is going to bust, or the seals around the glass start leaking, and that's usually what causes most fires. I would not recommend using any filter. If you've got a good petcock screen and you have a clean tank, then most of your gas today, if you run premium or non-ethanol, you're not going to have this anyway. Plus, I don't know how good of a fuel flow you're going to get out of a stone filter, especially if it gets kind of clogged and then the fuel doesn't flow out of there. I mean, I want as much fuel going to the carburetor as I can do. This would hinder fuel flow. So, and those lines are like so hard. So let me take you over there and show you what's coming out of the tank. So here's all the stuff that come out of the tank, and it is indeed sand. It's just sand. I thought it was maybe rust in there, but there's no rust that's come out. So because of that, with the sand in there, I'm going to take these tanks and I'm going to go to the car wash. And I'm going to open this up, leave the petcock off, and I'm going to blast water all in here and run out there. I'm going to take the other tank with me as well, blast water all through that, try to get all that sand out I can. Then we're going to blow air through it, let it air dry. Then I'm going to put gas in it, slosh that around to get maybe any kind of water that might have been left in there. Let that dry, and then these tanks will be good to put back on. I did not see really any rust down in there. I mean, it looks, there is some surface rust there, but the clogging of the carburetor is not coming from rust. It's coming from sand. So I'll run down the car wash and spray those out while our carburetor is soaking and cleaning. All right, we got most everything cleaned up, looking a whole lot better. The insides are looking good. A lot better than all that sand that was in there. Now our jets, we've put them through the ultrasonic cleaner. We have washed them off. We have blown them out with carb cleaner. I've not blown any air through them yet, because I've got this little tool here that I got on Amazon. I'll give you a link. I think it came with both. And they're little cleaners. And they will actually clean inside these jet holes. And they've got these little ridges on them that helps to get any kind of garb or anything off. So we'll run these through there, and they're going to be too small to run through here, but we can do our blow test. I also shot some carb cleaner through there, and we can blow these out with air, but that one is pretty much clean. This has a pretty large hole in it, but you can still run it through there. And then our big jet seat here will run through there. There's only, well, 2 holes, but one you can run through. Good deal. You can also put your finger over the hole, main hole, and watch your jet spray. And you can do that here on this one. Make sure they're not pointing toward your eyeballs. And watch us spray it, and watch it spray through as well. So it also has these brushes that you can run through your holes here and clean those up real good. Different size brushes, just to get out any debris that might be lodged up in there. So we'll go ahead and start with our air fuel, and it's got this long set screw here. Now if you're not careful, you can put this on wrong. What you want to do is put this spring on first, then your metal washer. It's tiny. It holds that spring. Then you've got your rubber that goes over that. The rubber is designed to keep the fuel from coming down out of here. Then we'll just run that in there. We'll screw that back. We'll go ahead and seat it all the way down. Now bring it out, turn and a half. And that's a good kind of starting point for that. Now we can go ahead and build our top part. We have this needle seat, and I had a guy from Florida just call about that. So this needle seat is what your main needle rides in. So it'll have a beveled end and then a flat end. It'll have a kind of a chamfer made into it. And the beveled end goes down into the hole, and it comes out down here. Now this right here will push that out. So you want to make sure that that sets in there and it's coming out the top here. You don't put this in from the top down. Put it in from this way. And then the beveled end is up toward the needle. These are brass, so you don't have to go crazy on them. Then we can take our small jet that just screws there into the top of that. And then we'll take our other jet, throw down in there. We'll give that a little snug. Now we have a new float needle. So we want to compare it to our old one. We're going to go ahead and put it on the little hook there. And then we'll set this all down together as one. Then we'll take our pin. We'll slide through here. And through there. Now when you put this on, these little tabs here hold that pin in. So you don't have to worry about it moving around on you. Okay? So at that point, that's done. You can also check your level. You can make sure that your fuel flow does cut off at the right level, putting your mouth over this and blowing air in and raising this up and seeing where it turns off at. Perfect. All right, that is done. Now let's start building on this here. We have our new diaphragm. It is grooved. Well, not our new one. We're going back with the old one. The new one was a little bit different than this, so I want to reuse this. It's still good. It's got a beveled edge that goes down like that, and then it'll also have a spring that will go like that. It'll also have a small washer that will go in here, and it's a unique type of washer, okay? Not one out of your parts thing. And it'll fit up in there, and you might have to be careful how you put this spring in to make sure that washer stays in. And line up the holes, and then we can put our three small screws in here. We'll tighten those down. And we can test this with our accelerator pump arm. Sounds good. Our accelerator arm, we've got a new boot that goes on that. And this arm, this boot will go up in there. And this arm will hook on right into our throttle here, so that when we give it throttle, the arm goes down. Now all this will go back on. We'll grab our new gasket, get it seated down in there good. And the way I like to do this is I like to do this upside down, like this. Okay. So I will actually start the arm in the hole and then start the whole accelerator pump up and push until it is seated. That sounds good. I'll slide my little boot down just like that. Then we'll get our screws, screw those down. All right. Now we'll go up top and we'll work on our needle and our diaphragm. Now the needle has been moved up. It did have these washers. I hope they were all on the bottom side of this needle. I'm not sure. Might have to play with it once we get it on and start the bike up and see how it runs. Because sometimes people will put a needle and then they'll put the rest of them up on top where it really doesn't matter. So I hope that they all three go down. It does have the Vance and Hine pipes on it, and you do have to rejet. And these do have bigger jets. They're not stock jets. So that I would assume they've got the three needles in there. And then once they're in there, I'll just run the needle through here. So the spacers are underneath that. And then we'll run our cap back in there and snap it down. That cap wasn't supposed to come off like that, but it did. Now we're ready to run this back in. Our needle is nice and smooth and ready to go in. Now there's only one way that this will go in. So if it doesn't go in one way, just turn it and it'll go in that way. And also, oh, I had it right the first time. You'll want to look inside here and make sure your needle goes inside the seat. Okay. Then that'll fall down. We can lightly press our diaphragm around the ring. It won't necessarily stay in there, especially if you've cleaned it well. Put our spring in, and then we'll go ahead and put these on. Now you'll find that on this cap, there's some sides that are smooth, and there's two sides that have little notches in them. And so it really doesn't matter because all of these holes up here have the notches. So we'll just go ahead and slide that down. What matters is that we wiggle it around and get our diaphragm to set good. We're going to make sure it's not squeezed out the sides any. It did set down on there well. Now, remember I took a bracket off this side of the throttle side. So there shouldn't be a screw for this, and I only have 3. So I'm going to put one over here, and one over here. Because this screw is over with my cable assembly over there. All right, now we can test our diaphragm. See how well it goes up and down. And you can take your mouth and put over this hole right here and blow. When you blow and keep pressure on it, this diaphragm will go up. When you let off, it should come back down. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. I'm going to spray just some carb cleaner in there. Just because it felt like it still had some of that ultrasonic cleaner on there. I saw it bubbling up down at the bottom of the slide. Yes, yes, yes. All right, now one thing I failed to mention, this thing right here, I had a carb a couple of weeks ago that this was pointed, the hole that squirts when your accelerator pumps, it squirts fuel out of here. And this was actually turned and squirting fuel on the side over here. Wasn't getting fuel straight back. It was on Evolution as well, I think a Dyna. So that was causing that not to spray in there. I checked this one, it's dead on, squirting that way. So now we're good. Let's go ahead and put our choke cable on. Okay, this is now lubed up. All right, so to put this together, we have our spring that'll go on, and that'll just go over that cap right there. So we got to put our spring on the cable first. Make sure your choke is turned all the way in as far as it'll go. That'll give you the most cable on this end. Then you'll just take your thumb and hold this back. Make sure you got it pointed down in case it comes off. And then you'll just slide that cable in the hole and let your spring go. There you go. Now we'll find our cable hole. We'll stick that down in there, and then we'll get this started. Sometimes it can be a bear to get it started. It's plastic going into metal, and they don't give you much room to thread either. So it just takes a little finessing. Then once you get it started, you're good. We'll do our system we had last time. That worked pretty good. All right, we'll get that snug. Remember, it is plastic. And then that'll go back through there. Our fuel line will go here. That VOES system will hook into there. Our bracket will go back on here. And everything looks good. So what we'll do, I got the new boot already on the intake. We'll put this on. And I'm going to run just a line out of here with some gas on a nozzle that I can pour in there with this setting on the bike. I'm looking for any leaks around out of here. And the way they had this air fuel screw gummed up in there, I'm going to look for leaks there as well. It looked to me like they had that washer on backwards from the or the O-ring on backwards. So that should have fixed that problem, but we'll still check it out. That way you don't have to put everything back together and the tank's on before and then you find a leak and you're like, oh crap. So you got to take everything back apart. So we'll put this on, we'll put some fuel line here, we'll pour some gas in here and make sure the fuel float's going to cut off. Make sure there's no fuel flowing out of anywhere. And then we'll leave the throttles off for now. We're just checking for gas. And at that point, we could go ahead and throw the battery in and see if it's going to run just off what fuel we've had in here. Then we can go ahead and check out any electricals while the tank's off. I know we had some lighting issues. We'll check brake lights, turn lights, headlights, running lights, passing lights, all that good stuff. Okay, so I've got just a line running up with a little, again, a gear oil bottle that I cut the bottom out of, and that fits down in that hose good, and I'll just run me some gas in top of there, and we'll look for any kind of leaks. You want to make sure you have clean gas. You want to make sure that this right here is clean as well. So I'm going to take much gas. There we go. I don't feel any leaks. I don't see any leaks. There's some accelerator pumping there. That's squirting good. No leaks at all. I'll go to the other side and I will hold the choke out and I'll hit our battery pack and we'll see what we got. Go ahead and turn that on. Hit our battery pack. There we go. Hold the choke out and I'll give it a start. Oh gosh, I don't even have the plugs on. That might help. Good grief. Don't even have the plugs in or the plug wires on. I went ahead and picked up a battery for this, so I think this time I'm just going to go ahead and throw a battery on just to test out the carburetor before we put everything back together. Let's make sure we got it on there right. Okay, I got a fresh battery in. I got my plugs in now, my plug wires. So we should be good. Let me squirt a little gas up in there. And of course that choke knob is broken. Every bike I get, it's like that. And I'll show you why here in a minute. All right, I'll hit the power. I'll pull the choke out. We'll see what we got. We are dry. Do it one more time. Yes, sir. And ma'am. Looks like we are fixed. Now, there is some gas dripping down from here and running down here. That's not concerning me because we don't have the gasket and the cover on. But we don't have any leaking, especially back here where they gummed it up. Looks like our 1.5 turns out was just right. Of course, I can adjust that once we're on the road. Even with the air box on, you can get under here. Just remember, it's backwards because it's upside down. And you can adjust your air fuel mix. We got a runner. All right, what's next? We do have to spray those tanks out. They're in bad shape. I want to start looking at the lights, brake lights. We've already done our oil change. We've already done our primary change. I'll check the transmission fluid. It's fine to run these, just starting it up. Before you check the transmission fluid, it's fine. But you don't want it running through gears before you check the transmission fluid. So we'll check that. That's good. So that's a carb rebuild that is much needed. It ran off them old plugs, but man, when we get new plugs in there, it'll really shoot off. So now we'll start looking at our lights. I believe this is an old school switch where you got one for ignition, one more for lights. Yep, we do. And then he had an issue with the passing lights. They weren't working. So we'll work on those. Let's go ahead and check our turn signals and brake lights and all that. I'll set you up back here, and then we'll see what kind of stuff we got. All right, with the ignition on, our brakes on. We have a running light back here. Let's try our turn. We have a solid on the turn, which means this front turn is out. Okay, let's try the other turn. Okay, both front and rear are working. Our turn signal bulb is working. We've got all three lights up here for our neutral, our oil, and our lights. All right, very good. We've got low beam and high beam. Our horn works. And yeah, so our passing lights do not work on this switch. So we'll have to look at how that is wired up. Our front fender light is working. Let's go ahead and check our brake lights. You'll probably have to tell me if those turn on. Okay, no rear brake light. Okay. We just lost all lights in the back, didn't we? Well. Okay. When I hit that front brake light, the front brake, we lost all lights. So that could be, okay. Probably in the bulb, and the way the bulb's looking, looks like it's barely on there. Let's see if we got a brake. Oh, okay. So we don't have a good ground. That's what it is. Brake. And no brake on the rear. So that's probably a brake switch, but we'll check it. So these lights back here, they're grounded to the frame. So that just does not have a good ground. So we'll fix that as well. And boy, she's puking oil out everywhere. She is puking oil where she hasn't run in a while, and it's went back and clogged up in that case. All right. So that's a bunch of puking. But I needed my tools greased up anyway, I guess. It is very, very loose. Very, very loose. Just gonna need to tighten our bolts there. I can get my hands up in there. Check our wires. Our wires are ran properly. They're up and out of the way. Looks like we just need to tighten those bolts in the back, and I think they're smaller than a 7/16. But I'll start with the 7/16. It's not like a touring bike where you can just take the shocks off and raise the back up. Oh, it is a 7/16. Ooh, hopefully no big spider up in there. Oh, yeah, that one was our loose one. There we go. Let's see if that solved that problem. One click for ignition, one for lights. My bulb looks like it's just about had it, doesn't it? I'll just go ahead and replace that bulb. How about brakes? No rear brakes. We have front brake lights. That's good. No rear brake lights. So we'll check our switch, see if that's the culprit. One of the wires was off the rear brake switch. So let's try this again. There's our light. There's our front brake. Okay. And there's our rear brake. So far, we're doing pretty good, I have to say. Now let's work on those passing lights, and then we'll be ready to put this back together and take it down the road and see how she does. All right, so I went ahead and just took the little thing off the switch and brought it out. Wires look good. It looks like they're still connected. I would say the problem is here in this switch. So we're going to test this switch just real quick with a multimeter. We're going to put it over on horseshoes, and we're going to put one on one end, one on the other. Okay, our switch seems to be working. Okay, now we're going to hook our meters back up with different plugs. I'm going to put this on a good ground, and these leads are long enough to go ahead and put back here on the battery. Okay, that's on the negative, and then one of these should be a hot for us. Turn the volts on. We'll go ahead and turn the lights on. That's not it. There we go, 10.9. Okay, I'll make me a little jumper wire, and we'll jump between these two, because if my switch is good and my wires are good, then it could just be busted bulbs, which we've found several on here that are not busted, but, well, one was. The day running one, the running lights on this was shot. The running light was good over there, but the blinker was shot. And our back brake light, I'm going to fix it as well. So I'm just going to jump these two connectors together, and we should have lights in the front, but we do not. Now I know that we've got power, so that tells me that the bulbs are bad. Switch is good, wiring's good, it's just the bulbs. So we'll go ahead and take this housing off. Probably could have done that first, but since the switch was right there, it was kind of easy to do. I like to take my screw all the way out so I can expand this ring and then pull this out. And then there's my hot, and there's my ground. And it does look like, let me get a light, but it looks like the little connector in the bulbs are busted. Here, yep, that bulb is busted. All right, so looks like a trip to the parts store and spraying those gas tanks out, and start putting everything back together, and keep checking stuff as well. Alrighty, so we got the tanks back on, and the artist for this artwork is right here. I don't know if you can see that name or not. The year is 97. BEAK. Center console on. We got our seat on. We did hook up the trickle charger. We got our cover back on. We got our tanks back on. We got the petcock back on, a new line, and I did turn the petcock a little sideways so it ran straight instead of like coming almost out to the horn bracket and going back in. So it's kind of a better angle. New rubber on there, new rubber on the crossover. Got our lights all in. Our bulbs are all in. Our new passing lights are on. New blinkers. Now, some of y'all are going to say, why in the world would you put water in a gas tank? Well, if you have sand, that's about the only way you're going to get that sand out of there. So I took these split tanks to the car wash, and I ran that nozzle down in the gas cap holes, and I let her rip. I sprayed and sprayed, and then would go try to get it up in the petcock hole and spray, and just kept, I put in 20 minutes worth of car washing, and spent my time out there just spraying them out, letting them drain, spraying them out, letting them drain. Then I brought the tanks back after most of the water was out, and I got my big diesel blower, and I set the tanks, a good probably 3 or 4 foot back on a little box, and turned that bad boy on. And it was cold kind of in the shop anyway, and went over, check the paint. You don't want it too close, it'll melt your paint. But I had it back enough where that hot air was going in there, and it dried it all out. I did kind of let it set overnight. Come in this morning, it was absolutely completely bone dry. You couldn't see a drop of wetness inside. Put some gas in, flush that out just to kind of get anything I might have missed out of there, and then I shook the tanks and you couldn't hear anything. So I did not put a inline fuel filter back in there. I don't like them sitting between the jugs anyway. And I just put that petcock filter back in. It looked really, really clean. Some of you guys are saying, well, why is that bike puking and making a mess underneath? Well, these are the old Evos. They don't have breather bolts in the heads. The later model Evos do. This doesn't. It's more like the shovel and the pan head kind of setup. So I did check the transmission fluid. It was right down on the add line, so I brought it up to the full line. Everything else I think is good. Now before we throw gas in it and go down the road, I do want to check the condition of the brake fluids, both in the front and the rears. I want to get these bars set up a little higher, and I've already adjusted the controls so when I raise the bars up, they'll be about right. All right, so I don't know if you can see or not, but the condition of the pads itself on both sides are pretty good. It's still got a lot of life left in it. Now you will see some rust here where it's been setting, but I think once I ride it, break those pads back in, it should be fine. So let's go check the fluid, see what that looks like. All right, so here's the condition of our fluid. And for a 30-year-old bike, it looks good and has good play, good feel in the lever, and also pretty clean and full. So somebody's been changing on this, keeping up their maintenance, at least on the brakes. So that's pretty good. Oh, by the way, I was able to drill what was left of that set screw and cleaned up the threads. And then I was able, once I put this cover on, to run this on with a new screw fitted for that certain thread. And so now the odometer does work. Can change it. Put the cap back on this. Pads look good. Fluid looks good. No sense in messing with something that ain't broke. So let's go down to our bottom caliper and check our rear pads and see what that looks like. That's where we're getting our squeaking from. We want to make sure our rotor's not binding on something and check the condition of our pads. Now I told you I was going to tell you about why every one of these I get in is broken. And here's why. All right, here's why these break. You have plastic threaded bolt. You have this nut. You have this lock washer. Then you have this piece, okay? This piece right here, see how it's all gouged up? Somebody's been trying to turn this and tighten this. This piece right here, this round piece, is connected to this threaded plastic bolt. So it doesn't turn. The way you put these on is you back this out, you put your lock washer back there, and then this plastic bolt is actually cut. It's got a flat side on it that goes up in this groove. So it goes back. If I can do this with one hand, let me see. So it goes up in that groove like that. This is supposed to be connected to that plastic piece, and then you use this to tighten it down to the depth you want it and the feel you want it, where when you pull this out, it stays out. So the reason that these break is people don't realize this right here does not turn, and they'll go to crank this because it's gnarled, so it looks like it would turn. Does not. Another reason these break is you crank down on this metal nut on a plastic bolt and it's going to break. So they get them too tight. But the majority of breakage is from people trying to turn this, and this is actually connected to this plastic threaded part. So it's supposed to be like this. Then you slide that up on there, then you tighten up your back piece back here. With this broken, no matter how much you tighten this nut, it just slides this piece on out, and it's just not ever going to set up in there right. So you can order new choke cables, put them on. You know, you got to pull the carb off to do that, but that's pretty easy fix. But that's why the majority of these break. All right, so here's the condition of our rear pad on the inside toward the wheel. The pad looks really good. A lot of pad left. Here's the one on the other side. Oh, there's quite a bit of pad on there. You just can't really see it from that angle I'm at. Maybe drop you down here. Yeah, see, quite a bit of pad still left up there. Okay, so the pads on here are good. Probably just squeaking from where, you know, it's just not been ridden at all. Now, on the fluid side, we'll need to loosen these two bolts here. This is just a cover, it slides off, and then we can get to our reservoir. All right, so these bolts here are double nutted. So you've got one nut that actually holds the reservoir on, and then the other nut that holds your chrome cover on, like that. So you take the first nut off in the washer, then you have access to here. Now before you open any of these reservoirs up, just make sure you spray it down good. Clean up all the guard from around the side. I'm not too concerned about the top, because you lift the top up, it's really the sides that you got to clean off. That's what'll fall in. So a lot of people don't realize that it says here, clean, and you just clean the top. Well, it's actually the sides that's going to not let debris fall down in there. All right, and I like these. They do have the Phillips head, but they also got the bolt head on it. Very nice. Very nice. Let's go ahead and take these off. See what we look like. Okay, so this fluid looks really nice as well. I will maybe add just a little bit just to get it up right here on these tops right here. And that's DOT 5 on this bike. Also take time to inspect your rubber boot that goes around to seal. And looks like somebody has replaced these, because these are in great shape. So somebody's been doing brake work before it was parked. Top this off with some DOT 5. We'll put it all back together. And I think officially then we're ready to go down the road. Now I am going to roll this bad boy outside and put gas in it before I start it up, because I don't want any more messes in that in my shop. I'd rather have it puking out outside than in here on my lift. So I will clean this mess up too. But new plugs are in. I noticed the old plugs were gapped to like a 32. I guess it's where people just take plugs out of the box and put them in. They should be, I think, 38 to 42, 0.38 and 0.42. So I run 40s. So I gap them at 40. So I increased the gap quite a bit, and went back with the Autolites because they just didn't have the Champions in stock. So I'm excited to go down the road with you on it and see how it does. Now look, you can't sit on the tank. You got to sit back here. All right, guys. This was a successful time in a shot with me and you here together, getting this Evo back on the road, this 90 Softail, and everything went well. You did some good wrenching. Proud of you. Now, I think this has a built motor in it. I mean, it has some power. It's got the straight pipes. You're going to have to wear earplugs when you're riding down the road with it. Carburetor's been rejetted. I bet with 51,000 miles on it, I bet when somebody went to redo the top end on this, I bet they went bigger with the jugs. This thing, it's got some power for an Evo. Went down the road, everything did great. Everything now works. The squeal in the back went away once I heated up the pads. When I'd come to a stop, I'd kind of stay in the throttle, hit my rear brake pads. Once they got seated and coming in and out, that squeal went away. Something I just noticed, you're not going to believe this. I just pulled this bike in here just to come in the shop after the ride. Let me show you what I found. Folks, you're not going to believe this. I just pulled this bike in, right? I mean, the shop's pretty full. We got bikes here and there and everywhere. This bike has been here. This bike behind it came in a couple of days ago. But check this out. You're not going to believe this. 2 Softails, Evo motors, 5 speeds, Indian print, Native American paintwork on both bikes. Same color bikes. What is going on here? This is crazy. Look, this has Indian here on the side, Indian print down the tank, Chief on the side, Indian print or feathers down the tank. on the rear. Indian print down the fender. On this, feathers down the fender. And a squaw wearing a bald eagle. Doesn't get much cooler than that. Feathers down the tank here. Aztec on the tank there. Chief on the side here. And squaw on the side there. On the fender, feathers over there. Indian print. What is going on? Did the same artist do both of these bikes? Now, understand, these bikes are from different customers, different counties, still in Tennessee, but could this be the same artist? Now, on this tank here, I've already showed you this, but right underneath the cap is his name, Beck, 1997. Now, on this tank over here, I can't find on the fender or the tank, I can't find any kind of writing. Gosh, this right here, that's one of the reasons this bike's in here. It's leaking all out here and destroying his paint. He tried to cover it with a sticker. So we got to fix that. But I can't find any kind of name on this artwork. But boy, it looks awful similar. Even the style of artwork. And you know, every pinstriper and painter I know are the most humble guys you're going to meet. So when they do put their name on the artwork, they kind of hide it. You have to find it. But if you're watching this and you did these or did one or the other, reach out to me. I'd love to know the story behind this. If you did both bikes, they're both here. You can come see them. Take your picture with them. That's pretty cool. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, dude, don't that many people watch your videos. That's true. However, I had somebody email me that was watching the video of my son's bike, and they said in the email, that's my husband's artwork. Showed the name, it all matched up. He does all kind of artwork on sawmill blades, all kinds of stuff. Pretty cool. So if you know who did that artwork, or if the same Beck guy did that, that's just awesome that they're both here in the shop, unrelated. And I didn't even know it till I pulled up and parked, got out and shot a closing, video to end this time together, turned around and thought I was standing behind the wrong bike. This is fun. Well, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for hanging out in the shop with me. I so much enjoy y'all being here. Hey, and let me know what you're working on. I had a guy from Florida reach out to me. He's rebuilding a carb. And the video, he was watching my video and I didn't show a certain thing, and he called and wanted to know, hey, how do you do that? So I was glad I was able to help him. He sent me a video of his bike running. Man, that's what makes YouTube and this channel so much fun, is I get to connect to so many different guys out there and gals just riding and wrenching and having a good time. And so thank you so much for being with me today, and tell your mom and them I said hi.